Hello there, this is Mike Goldenberg with Abzan Traverse, a deck I used to play quite a bit and quite more often. This is a bad hand, I'll mulligan. This is another bad hand, I'll mulligan. This hand is fine. Seedrino, I'm a bit far away from him at the moment, although I do actually have access to 4 mana here. I go back and forth with how I feel about how this deck mulligans. Sometimes I feel like it mulligans very well, and sometimes I feel like it doesn't at all. For example, this hand is really just a Fatal Push and a bunch of land. That's not a very good hand. But if my opponent's slower than I am, it's perfectly fine. I'm probably going to grab a Godless Shrine and push whatever my opponent plays. Their Tarmogoyf or their Dark Confidant here. And if I traverse next turn, if I top deck a Bauble, I'll actually have Traverse turned on. I can traverse for a land, then traverse for something else. Looks like my opponent and I both have removal full hands, or rather, looks like they do. Okay, so I'm up against Black-Green Rock. This will be a tough matchup. Yep. That was a very good top deck here. I'll discard a Traverse. I see my opponent has an Abrupt Decay or something to do with the Liliana. Probably a trophy. If they're Field of Ruin, they might be heavy in the trophy department. Yeah, that'll do it too. So now I can traverse for anything I want. Could be Seedrino, could be Scavenging Ooze. I have a decent amount of mana, so Scavenging Ooze is considerable, although a Collective Brutality would also kill him. I might just not want to be cute and just grab the 6/7 Tarmogoyf. Grimflayer is also very good, but if they then untap and play a Tarmogoyf, then he just gets quickly outclassed. Yep. So I'm going to hold up Treetop, hoping that my opponent runs into it. Yes, I'll block. I don't know why they didn't Field of Ruin my Treetop Village to protect their Dark Confidant. They really didn't want him, which is what I'm reading out of that. Oh, their hand is very good. They didn't need him. I'll chip in some damage while I can. Yep. So buy me a turn. That's about it. Black Rain Rock actually is better than Abzan Traverse at grinding. Their Scavenging Oozes wreck the base strategy that I'm trying to employ. And, yep. Okay, so they actually had the land, so Liliana's going to die. Without some good top decks, I'm pretty dead here. That counts, although Scavenging Ooze is outclassing him at the moment. Sure. For a 20 land deck, I'm drawing a lot of land here. So that was important. Now I need a Lingering Souls. Be a good top deck right here. Or Siege Rhino. I'll be right back. So I'm not actually in a terrible spot here. Lingering Soul top deck would be fine pulling me out of it. I really cannot afford to draw any more lands. The Last Hope would be a good draw. Probably be a bit too slow. Okay. We get much better post board. We get access to more spot removal, more Lingering Souls, maybe some Knight of Autumns, and we lose cards that aren't as good, like the discard spells. Now, Traverse itself might actually be a liability in this type of matchup. Alright, well, these are definites. And of these, I'm going to pick two. Knight of Autumn's probably not good enough. I don't mind having a little bit of discard if I can knock them off of a Liliana or a Tireless Tracker. I feel like that's pretty good. Maybe something like that. So Knight of Autumn is okay here. Not great. It's a 4/3. I might actually want to change it for a Fulminator Mage, but I think Knight of Autumn is just more flexible at switching the races, and being a 4/3 body is extra relevant. Just a very powerful effect. Plus, who knows? Maybe they'll bring in Leyline of the Void to try to hose my Traverse strategy. And Knight of Autumn is a nice little main deck answer to that. I'll absolutely be on the play. Sand is fine. Need one more black land. But I have a turn 1 Shambling Vent, turn 2 Flayer or Tarmogoyf, turn 3 hopefully Liliana Pitch Souls or Liliana something. Okay. Tarmogoyf's itty bitty, so I will not play him. The worst case scenario, my opponent plays a Collective Brutality and escalates, pitching my souls. My Tarmogoyf will just be much bigger there. My hope is my opponent plays something like a Dark Confidant, then I top deck a land. Okay, this is the worst case scenario, and it's still not that bad. It's arguable I should have flashed back the souls here to prevent Scavenging Ooze from eating it, or to prevent me getting blown out from Liliana of the Veil. But I think the Tarmogoyf power level is a little bit higher here. I took the more aggressive route, because the longer this game goes on, the less likely I am to win. Okay. I'll edict that and swing in for 4. Putting me way ahead on the battlefield, especially since my opponent missed a land drop. My hand is very good. Next turn I get to play a Liliana Last Hope and have both Planeswalkers in play, which is always amazing. If they play something scary, I get to Path Exile it. That's scary, sure. Or I can just top deck very well. Be able to empty my hand. So far taking that more aggressive line has worked out. They did eat my Lingering Souls, but that's fine. I mean, I 2-turn clock on them right now with a very good board state. The combination of Liliana, Veil, and Last Hope is very devastating. Last Hope can pick off their Dark Confidant, and Veil can eat their bigger threat. No matter what they play right now, they kind of have to play around that. You know, if they spend the turn just removing my Planeswalkers, then I get to be beating their face in with the Tarmogoyf. So either way here, I think I'm way ahead. These mirrors often come down to whoever gets to kill a turn 2 threat with a turn 3 Liliana wins, or at least is way ahead. Because I haven't won this game yet. You know, they still have plenty of cards in hand, whereas I'm hellbent. If they had a Fatal Push and Abrupt Decay, then they'd be right back into it. Yep. So they're going to choose to invest their turn in killing Liliana of the Veil. I'm fine with that. I will rebuy Grimflayer. Or Scavenging Ooze. No, I like Grimflayer more. Interesting to note, if I had flipped an extra Tarmogoyf, I would not have played it because I do not want to lose to Maelstrom Pulse. I like having a diversity of threats against Maelstrom Pulse decks. Okay. So, good news is that Liliana actually beats Tarmogoyf here. They have to block the Tarmogoyf, or unless they have a removal spell in hand. So they have to have a removal spell here. Okay. Sure. Now I can replay another Liliana and plus her to kill the Tarmogoyf. Or I can play Lingering Souls and try to speed the clock up on my opponent. I actually like killing their Tarmogoyf here. This way they have to answer my Grimflayer, which could just be with the Hissing Quagmire. And then I can invest my turn, dropping Lingering Souls the following turn. If I top deck a land, I can fully play my Lingering Souls out, and not have to worry about Scavenging Ooze eating it up. So my opponent did miss a land drop early. It looks like since then they've just drawn a bunch of lands. Okay. I still think killing the Tarmogoyf is the correct play. Otherwise they would have plussed and I would have lost to Liliana. Yeah. Hopefully I flip a Souls here. I did. I'll actually grab Tarmogoyf. And I'll cast Souls. This way, when they plus Liliana, I'll just ditch my Lingering Souls, and I'll be able to keep the Assassin's Trophy in my hand for a blocker. Following that, it's possible I should have just played Grimflayer instead, and with the plan of blowing up their Hissing Quagmire with the trophy and winning in combat. But that's probably a bit too cute. The 5/6 Tarmogoyf outclasses. Yep. Outclasses Grimflayer right now. So, trophy and swing for victory. Going to game 3. Alright, now the two questionable cards were these, the questionable cards were these right here. If they go turn 2 Dark Confidant, I would like a couple more ways to respond to that. So I might cut Knight of Autumn for a Collective Brutality and do a little switch up there. I'm not sure about it. Maybe I'll do something like that. Just as extra ways of dealing with their turn 2 Dark Confidant. Sounds fine. They have a Fatal Push coming up. I'm actually just going to... Nope, nope. That was a misclick. That was a terrible, terrible misclick. I should have had the Godless Shrine, and I was going to Path to Exile the Tarmogoyf, untap, play my own Tarmogoyf, let them Fatal Push it, and then untap with a Scavenging Ooze and hopefully 3 lands. Okay, so they still have the Fatal Push. My opponent is missing lands again. Yep. This is a situation where Fatal Push is much better than Path to Exile. I am now giving my opponent the lands they need to be able to cast their spells on time. It's more mana efficient to play Lingering Souls, and Lingering Souls is much better against Liliana, so I'll cast Souls. I don't want to cast a Tarmogoyf, have them untap with the Liliana the Veil, and then just run away with the game. Plus this way, if I top deck a land, I get to cast Flashback Souls and cast a spell. And I did. Basic Swamp. I have 4 cards in hand. I think I'd rather have Tarmogoyf out than Grimflayer, just because, again, of the size difference. With that Collective Brutality in my deck, I know I can attack a Tarmogoyf into my opponent's Tarmogoyf, and then I can always Brutality them and kill theirs off if they block. Little things like that, or a Liliana Ping. I have 3 ways of kind of messing with my opponent in that regard. Okay, Scavenging Ooze is very good right now. Yep. Still know about a Fatal Push. And I still have 4 card types, so I should probably just use this now. Siege Rhino is good, Tarmogoyf is good. Kalidas is very good. I think I'll just take a Siege Rhino here. And play my own Scavenging Ooze to start eating their yard. This is a situation where Shriekmaw would be very, very good. It's a card I'm a big fan of. Unfortunately, it hasn't been as good since Hollow One kind of came out. Hollow One kind of further pushed the Death Shadow, Hollow One, Gurmag Angler decks, the decks that have creatures that do not die to Shriekmaw. I used to mainboard a Shriekmaw, and I also have one in the sideboard for a little while. I think it'd be great if we could go back to that, but I don't think we can do that right now. One in the sideboard is perfectly fine. It'd be very good in this type of matchup, for example. Very good against humans, even though it cannot hit Kitesail Freebooter. It's also surprisingly relevant against spirits. If you evoke a Shriekmaw and they spell queller it, then you kill the spell queller, you actually just get Shriekmaw, and you did not invest the full 5 mana into it. So my opponent fetched a land. They are a much better Scavenging Ooze deck than I am. Not only do they run probably 4 more lands than me, but they also are only 2 colors. This is interesting. If I attack, I get to kill their Scavenging Ooze, but they can kill my Tarmogoyf. I think I want to go for it. No blocks. Okay. If I draw another land, I would have cast Lingering Souls, then flashed it back right there, and then just represented lethal in the air. Sea Drino is important in this deck because it's a threat that does not use the graveyard. Kalitas, Tarmogoyf, Scavenging Ooze, Grimflayer, Lingering Souls, all these cards use the graveyard. I actually think a Soul's the worst thing here. Even though my opponent is at 3, they're about to be, at any time they can go up to 6, and there's still no creatures left in the yard. But if they ever needed to, they can attack with Kalitas just to gain 3 life. I don't think there's a big difference between putting my opponent at 2 or putting them at 1. Also, I really don't want to put more creatures in the yard for my opponent's Scavenging Ooze. If my opponent has exactly Maelstrom Pulse, this is not the winning line. Otherwise, the correct line would be just to play Grimflayer, but I think this is right. They're going to eat my second half of the Lingering Souls, but I'm representing 3 damage in the air. And they're at 3 life. If they have to attack with Kalitas, then I think I'm winning anyway. Let's say they attack with Kalitas. I will block with Sea Drino. They will go up to 6 life, and then I have a much bigger board presence than they do. They'll be forced to Field of Ruin my Treetop Village and play a threat. Yeah, I think I'm pretty far ahead right now. All on the back of the front half of Lingering Souls. This deck is good when Lingering Souls is good, and when Grim Flayer is good. Yep, okay, so they're doing, kind of outlining what I started with. If they pass without attacking, that's telling me they do have a removal spell in hand. Okay, that's fine. I knew that was going to happen. So I was talking about Siege Rhino being important in this deck. Being a 4/5 body with trample is very relevant in a field of humans and spirits where a lot of their creatures aren't that large. So this is the only way my opponent could not die. Now it looks like they're going to have to block with Treetop Village if they don't play another spell. I'm going to try to eat Kalitas with my Scavenging Ooze. If they fight me over it, it means they cannot block with Treetop Village. It kind of signals to me what their play is. I don't mind shrinking my Tarmogoyf, I'm also shrinking theirs. Okay, so that means they have to block with the Treetop. So if I attack with everything, they'll block Tarmogoyf to Tarmogoyf, and they'll probably eat something so they both die. Skoos to Skoos. Actually, I'll probably go something like this. Block that. Yeah, they're not in a favorable position here. And I am not dead if they get a attack back. Most they can do is 11. This is double black. This is not activating Treetop Village. Okay. As long as my Scavenging Ooze survives this, he'll be very big. My opponent may forget about the trample on Siege Rhino, which is some of the most relevant text I've found on it. Same thing with Grim Flayer. Yep. And then Tarmogoyf on Rhino. Okay. There's one Planeswalker in play. So if I do this, my Tarmogoyf will shrink to a 3/4, but theirs will die. I'm fine with that. There's no creatures in the graveyard for me to eat, so I'll move on. And I don't see a reason to play Grim Flayer. If they end up having Damnation, it would kind of be a blowout. So I will just pass turn. And if they end up drawing a Liliana, they would be minusing her anyway. So that was game. I'll show you the deck. The deck is right here. Sideboard looks a lot of one-ofs, but that's with intent. For example, Stony Silence and Kataki are very similar. Remorseful Cleric is an extra Grave Hate. So I actually have 3 different types of Graveyard Hate, but they all functionally do something very similar. Fulminator Mage is also a nice little one-of, just to bring in against decks where kind of need more trophies. So Languish is my one of Board Wipe, which should not kill my Tarmogoyf or my Siege Rhino, and sometimes will also not kill my Kalitas. And my grindy package is these guys right here, Kalitas and my Lingering Souls. The main deck itself is decently standard. I've been tuning the removal package based on the current meta. Path to Exile, for example, a card I'm typically down on, is very good right now. I also still really like 3 Liliana the Veil. Some people will try to talk me out of it. I still think her power level is worth it. Sure, she's terrible in some matchups like Dredge. She's not very good in some matchups like Humans. Actually, if you go through the list, she's actually pretty bad against a lot of decks right now. But she still ends up winning games almost on her own. Things don't always work out the way they do in paper. Life's messy. Magic the Gathering is messy. And Liliana the Veil wins those messy games. So I did go up to 20 lands just because I wanted an extra man land. And I also feel more comfortable with 20 lands. Think a mulligan's better. And once I dropped down from 3 traverse down to 4, I think 20 lands was necessary just to be able to curve out correctly. You can still run 19, it's perfectly fine. 19 on the draw is fine, but I do like having 20 on the play. So that's the deck. Hope you like it. Let me know what you think.